Welcome back to the Coins Numismatic series, the channel where we dive deep into the treasures of American coinage, uncovering the stories, history, and hidden value behind the coins you thought were ordinary. Today, we're unlocking a countdown you won't want to miss, the top 5 most rare George Washington $quarter coins. These are the coins that seem like pocket change at first glance but carry hidden value, collector intrigue, and rich history that make them stand out in the world of numismatics. So get ready, because we're about to reveal 5 Washington quarters that every collector should know, coins that may be sitting in your collection, or even in your spare change, right now. Let's jump right in. The 1972 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, and that's why you'll see the small D mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail. At this point in history, America was still in the middle of important social, cultural, and economic shifts. The Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932, had already become one of the most widely circulated denominations, and by the early 1970s, it was firmly embedded in American daily life. But there's a unique charm about the 1972 D. It represents not just a monetary tool, but also a snapshot of the time, the early 1970s, when silver had been fully removed from circulation. Coins and copper-nickel-clad quarters became the standard. The design itself remains iconic. The obverse features the portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. Washington's bust faces left, with the word Liberty arched across the top, and just below, the motto, In God We Trust. The date, 1972, anchors the bottom of the obverse. When you flip the coin over, the reverse displays the heraldic eagle, wings spread majestically, perched upon a bundle of arrows, with 2 olive branches below. Above the eagle, the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, stands tall, while the inscription, United States of America, curves along the rim, and $quarter marks the denomination at the bottom. This is the classic reverse design that defined the Washington quarter for decades before the state quarters program of 1999 revolutionized the look of the series. The mintage numbers. The 1972 D had a massive production run. Over 311 million pieces were struck. On the surface, this might make you think it's one of the most common quarters out there. And indeed, in circulated condition, you can find these coins fairly easily. However, what separates the valuable ones from the rest are the high-grade survivors and error varieties. Remember, with hundreds of millions of coins minted, striking issues and quality variations are bound to happen. This is where collectors get excited. One of the major points of interest for the 1972 D is its scarcity in true gem condition. Because these coins were produced for circulation, most of them encountered heavy use. Finding one that has survived decades of pocket change circulation without significant wear, scratches, or dings is far harder than the mintage figure might suggest. In fact, in mint state 65 and higher, the 1972 D can fetch notable premiums at auction. Registry set collectors, those who compete to have the highest graded set certified by services like PCGS and NGC, push demand for these high-end examples even further. But beyond grade rarity, there's the world of mint errors, and the 1972 D has its fair share. Collectors seek out double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks. For example, a strong double die obverse with clear doubling in the inscriptions can dramatically increase a coin's value, sometimes taking a quarter worth $1 or $2 in worn condition and making it worth hundreds, even thousands. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, are another exciting error type. And repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled or distorted due to the way it was punched into the die, also attract specialized collectors. As for market value, a 1972 D in average circulated condition is still worth face value, about 25 cents, because so many remain in existence. However, values climb quickly in higher conditions. A mint state 63 example might bring in a few dollars, but once you reach MS 65 and higher, you're talking anywhere from $40 to over $100. In ultra-high grades like MS 67, which are extremely rare for this issue, prices can skyrocket into the hundreds. Factor in errors, and you have an even more dramatic story. Certain double dies or dramatic off-center examples have crossed the $1,000 mark at auction. The historical context also adds to its appeal. By 1972, Americans had fully adjusted to clad coinage, which replaced the beloved 90% silver coins just a few years earlier in 1965. Many older collectors at the time weren't thrilled with the copper-nickel sandwiches replacing their silver pieces, and this shift created an interesting cultural divide in coin collecting. As a result, the quarters of the 1970s, though less glamorous in terms of metal content, have taken on an importance of their own in the narrative of U.S. coinage. So, why should collectors pay attention to the 1972 Washington Quarter? First, it's a foundational piece in any Washington Quarter set, especially for those working on a complete circulation strike collection from 1932 to the modern day. Second, its value in high grades and in rare error forms makes it a sleeper pick for those who enjoy hunting through rolls of quarters. Imagine picking up a bank box, spotting that little D on a 1972, and realizing you've uncovered a gem-quality piece worth dozens or even hundreds of times face value. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching. Finally, the collector interest in this coin continues to grow because of its role in the broader Washington Quarter series. The Washington Quarter is one of the most collected U.S. coins, thanks to its long run and its redesign during the State Quarters program. Enthusiasts who want to honor the classic Eagle reverse era naturally gravitate toward coins like the 1972 D. So, the next time you come across a 1972 D Washington Quarter dollar, don't be too quick to dismiss it. Take a closer look. Check for sharp details, examine it for errors, and appreciate it for the history it represents. 1973 George Washington Quarter dollar coin without mint mark in good condition. The second coin on our journey is the 1973 Washington Quarter struck in Philadelphia. Now, what makes this coin particularly interesting is the absence of a mint mark. Unlike Denver or San Francisco, the Philadelphia Mint traditionally did not place a mint mark on its quarters during this time period. So, when you find a 1973 quarter without any letter to the right of Washington's ponytail, you are holding a product of the nation's original mint. At first glance, the 1973 Washington Quarter might seem like just another common circulation coin, but that's exactly what makes it so intriguing. Millions of these coins passed through the hands of Americans every day during the 1970s, buying groceries, paying for gas, or jingling around in jukeboxes and vending machines. The coin is a perfect time capsule of the early 70s, a time when the United States was navigating post-Vietnam challenges, the Watergate scandal was unraveling, and inflation was creeping into everyday life. Against this backdrop, the Washington Quarter served as one of the country's most recognizable and heavily relied upon coins. On the obverse, John Flanagan portrait of George Washington dominates the face of the coin, a design first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. The bust faces left, framed by the bold word "Liberty" at the top. Just below Washington's chin, we see the national motto, "In God We Trust," and the date 1973 is anchored at the bottom rim. The lack of a mint mark is crucial here, as it distinguishes this issue from its Denver counterpart. The simplicity of the obverse design, coupled with its symbolic power, makes it one of the most enduring images in American coinage. Flip it over, and you're met with the powerful heraldic eagle reverse. Wings spread wide, talons gripping a bundle of arrows, the eagle sits atop an olive branch. This imagery perfectly balances themes of strength and peace, showcasing America's readiness to defend itself while also desiring harmony. Above the eagle rests the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. The inscriptions United States of America and quarter dollar complete the reverse, cementing the coin's identity. This reverse would be used continuously until 1998, making coins like the 1973 quarter a proud representative of the long-running classic Washington Quarter design. Mintage: the Philadelphia Mint struck just over 346 million of these coins in 1973. That's a huge number, and in circulated condition, most of these are still worth face value, a simple 25 cents. But as with many coins, the devil is in the details. Collectors don't chase after every single one of those hundreds of millions of coins. Instead, they zero in on the rare survivors that remain in top condition or display striking mint errors. In lower grades, such as good, very fine, or even about uncirculated, the 1973 No Mintmark Quarter is quite common. These are the ones that clink around in change and often end up in bulk lots or coin jars. But as we move into higher mint state grades, the scarcity becomes clear. Coins that have avoided heavy circulation, retaining their luster and sharp details, are much harder to find than the original mintage might suggest. This is where certification companies like PCGS and NGC come into play. A 1973 quarter graded MS65 or higher can command strong premiums, especially among collectors who are building registry sets, curated collections of coins in the finest possible condition. One reason high-grade examples are so difficult to come by is the quality of striking during the early 1970s. The Philadelphia Mint produced quarters quickly and in massive quantities, often leading to weak strikes where details on Washington's hair or the eagle's feathers appear mushy or flat. Combine that with decades of circulation wear, and you begin to see why pristine examples are rare. This makes gem-quality survivors incredibly desirable. And then there's the fascinating world of mint errors. The 1973 Philadelphia Quarter has its share of these quirks. Doubled dies, where the inscriptions or design elements appear doubled due to die misalignment, are one of the most exciting error types. While not every doubled die commands sky-high values, strong ones can bring hundreds of dollars. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing due to misaligned planchets, are also collected enthusiastically. Clipped planchets, die cracks, and strike-through errors, where foreign material interfered with the striking process, round out the list of collectible varieties. These mistakes turn what might otherwise be a common coin into a true collector's prize. Market value is another fascinating aspect. In circulated condition, again, the 1973 No Mintmark Quarter hovers right around face value. But once you step into the uncirculated category, values begin to climb. An MS-63 example might sell for $5 to $10, while MS-65 coins can reach the $40 to $60 range. At MS-67, prices leap into the hundreds, sometimes fetching $400 or more. Rare errors or exceptionally well-struck examples can soar even higher, making them prized possessions in any Washington Quarter collection. Beyond numbers and values, the 1973 Washington Quarter holds significance in the broader story of American coinage. This was a time when collectors were still grappling with the shift from silver to clad coinage. Older hobbyists often dismissed these copper-nickel pieces as junk, preferring the silver coins of the pre-1965 era. But over time, attitudes shifted. The clad quarters of the 1970s became the coins of an entire generation, carrying with them the nostalgia of soda machines, payphones, and arcade games. Today, younger collectors view them as vintage treasures in their own right. So, why does this coin matter to collectors? First, it's a necessary piece in any complete Washington Quarter set, whether you're focusing on circulation strikes or building a specialized high-grade registry collection. Second, its status as a Philadelphia No Mintmark issue gives it a unique identity compared to its Denver counterpart. Third, its potential for rare errors and high-grade premiums makes it a coin that every sharp-eyed collector keeps an eye out for. And finally, it connects us to a pivotal era in American history, an era when the quarter wasn't just a collector's item, but a vital part of daily commerce. For hobbyists who love the thrill of the hunt, the 1973 No Mintmark Quarter represents an exciting opportunity. Roll hunters and pocket change enthusiasts still search for these coins, hoping to uncover that elusive gem-quality example or dramatic error variety. And that's one of the joys of numismatics. Even in a coin as seemingly ordinary as a 1973 quarter, there lies the possibility of discovery, value, and historical connection. So, the next time you come across a 1973 Washington Quarter without a mint mark, don't underestimate it. Take the time to examine its surfaces, study its details, and appreciate the story it tells. From its massive mintage to its rare survivors, from everyday commerce to high-stakes auctions, this coin embodies the essence of collecting. 1974 George Washington $quarter coin without mint mark in good condition. We arrive at the 1974 Washington Quarter from the Philadelphia Mint, a coin with no mint mark, struck right before one of the most famous events in U.S. coinage history, the transition to the Bicentennial design of 1976. The 1974 quarter might seem like a simple bridge between eras, but when you examine it more closely, you'll find that it carries unique historical weight, collector intrigue, and potential value far beyond its 25-cent face. The 1974 Washington Quarter in context. The early 1970s were turbulent years for the United States. Inflation was rising, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and the nation was preparing to celebrate its 200th birthday. Against this backdrop, the Washington Quarter was in its 42nd year of production. By this time, Americans had fully adjusted to the clad coinage introduced in 1965, which replaced silver with a copper-nickel sandwich alloy. The Washington design had become so familiar that it was practically invisible in daily life, people barely noticed it as they handed over change at the grocery store or dropped coins into payphones. Yet for numismatists, the 1974 issue is much more than background noise, it's a crucial piece of the Washington Quarter series. The design itself was unchanged from previous years, still carrying the timeless artistry of John Flanagan. On the obverse, Washington's left-facing profile commands attention, framed by the inscription, Liberty, at the top. The motto, In God We Trust, appears to the left, nestled just below Washington's chin, and the date, 1974, sits boldly at the bottom. Unlike the Denver minted coins that carry a small d, or the San Francisco proof issues marked with an S, this Philadelphia issue bears no mint mark at all, a characteristic that distinguishes it instantly to trained eyes. On the reverse, the heraldic eagle spreads its wings, standing firmly on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. This imagery is deeply symbolic, a balance between strength and peace, readiness and restraint. Above the eagle is the traditional e pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many, one, emphasizing unity in diversity. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions, United States of America, and, quarter dollar, completing the classic look that defined the Washington Quarter for over 6 decades before the state quarters program began in 1999. The mintage of the 1974 Philadelphia Quarter was massive, over 801 million pieces. This enormous production means that in circulated grades, the coin is extremely common and still found in pocket change today. But as always, the numbers only tell part of the story. While hundreds of millions were struck, finding examples that have survived in pristine mint state condition is much more difficult than the raw figures suggest. That's because most of these coins entered circulation immediately and endured decades of wear, scratches, and loss of luster. Collectors focus their attention on uncirculated examples, especially those graded MS-65 or higher. At this level, the coin's surfaces are expected to show strong luster, minimal marks, and sharp details. However, the 1974 quarter is notorious for being weakly struck, particularly on Washington's hair and the eagle's breast feathers. As a result, sharply struck, gem-quality coins are elusive, and their scarcity drives collector demand. Registry set collectors, those competing to build the best possible collections certified by grading services like PCGS and NGC, prize these high-grade examples, pushing their market values upward. Then there's the fascinating world of mint errors, and the 1974 issue has plenty to offer. One of the most famous and sought-after errors of this year is the double die obverse. On some examples, the date, lettering, or motto shows strong doubling visible to the naked eye. Such coins are dramatic and highly collectible, with values soaring into the hundreds or even thousands depending on condition. Off-center strikes are another exciting variety, where part of the design is missing because the blank was misaligned in the press. A well-centered off-strike with a clear date and no mint mark can bring impressive premiums. Other error types include die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, each of which adds a unique twist to an otherwise common issue. Market value depends heavily on condition. In circulated grades, a 1974 No Mintmark Quarter is worth its face value of 25 cents, since so many remain in existence. But in mint state grades, values rise steadily. An MS-63 example might fetch $5 to $10, while an MS-65 coin could reach $40 to $60. The real jump occurs in MS-67, where prices can leap into the hundreds, sometimes surpassing $500 at auction. Add in a dramatic error, such as a double die or off-center strike, and the coin's value can easily exceed $1,000, turning an ordinary quarter into a treasure. The historical significance of the 1974 quarter also shouldn't be underestimated. This was the final year before the introduction of the Bicentennial design, which temporarily replaced the eagle reverse with Jack R's revolutionary depiction of a colonial drummer and a torch surrounded by stars. In a sense, the 1974 issue marks the end of an era, the last standard eagle reverse quarter before the 2-year celebration of America's 200th birthday began. For collectors, that makes the 1974 a symbolic bookend, closing the chapter on more than 4 decades of continuous eagle reverse production. Why is this coin important to collectors? First, it's an essential component of any Washington Quarter collection, particularly for those aiming to build a complete run of circulation strikes. Second, its potential for high-grade value and exciting error varieties keeps it firmly in the spotlight. Third, it connects directly to one of the most iconic shifts in U.S. coinage history, the leap from the standard eagle reverse to the bicentennial commemorative design. Finally, it captures the spirit of its time, a coin minted in the shadow of political upheaval, economic uncertainty, and the anticipation of a grand national celebration. The 1974 quarter also appeals to different types of collectors for different reasons. Roll hunters love it because of its high mintage, which increases the chances of finding one in bank-wrapped rolls. Error specialists are drawn to the double dies and off-center strikes. High-end collectors chase after the elusive MS-67 gems to add prestige to their registry sets. And casual hobbyists often keep them simply because they mark the end of the classic eagle reverse era before the patriotic bicentennial redesign. When you hold a 1974 Washington quarter in your hand, you're holding more than just 25 cents. You're holding the culmination of over 4 decades of American tradition, the anticipation of a major historical celebration, and the potential. 1984, P. George Washington quarter dollar coin in good condition. Now brings us to a fascinating piece from the 1980s, the 1984 P. Washington quarter dollar struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, this coin seems like just another everyday quarter, one of the millions that jingled in pockets during the Reagan era. But like so many coins in numismatics, the 1984 P quarter carries layers of history, collector intrigue, and hidden value that make it worthy of a closer look. To understand the significance of the 1984 P quarter, we have to start with the broader context. The early 1980s were a transformative time in America. The economy was rebounding from recession, technology was beginning to reshape daily life, and pop culture was booming with music, television, and film that would define a generation. In the middle of all this change, the Washington quarter remained a constant presence, unchanged in design but still central to commerce. The quarter was the workhorse of everyday transactions, buying arcade tokens, fueling vending machines, and paying for parking meters. And the 1984 P issue captured that moment in history perfectly. The design was the familiar and iconic work of John Flanagan. On the obverse, George Washington's profile faces left, strong and dignified, framed by the word liberty above. To the left of Washington's throat, the national motto, "In God We Trust," stands proudly, while the date, 1984, anchors the bottom of the coin. The absence of a mint mark tells us this quarter was struck in Philadelphia, which, at that time, had resumed placing P mint marks on most denominations but not on this issue of the quarter. Turning to the reverse, the heraldic eagle spreads its wings wide in a stance that exudes both authority and calm. The eagle grips a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and defense, while olive branches curve gracefully beneath, representing peace. The familiar E pluribus unum floats above the eagle, while the inscriptions, United States of America, and quarter dollar, complete the design along the rim. This classic look had been in use since 1932 and would continue unchanged until the state quarters program debuted in 1999. Now let's examine the mintage figures. The Philadelphia Mint struck an astonishing 676 million quarters in 1984, making this one of the most common issues of the decade. With such a large production run, the vast majority entered circulation immediately, and many remain in pocket change today. For most people, a 1984 P quarter is still just 25 cents. But as with all coins, rarity and value emerge in the details. Collectors seek out examples that survive in pristine condition, free from the dings, scratches, and wear of circulation. That's where the real challenge, and the real excitement, begins. The 1984 P quarter is notorious among collectors for being weakly struck. Many examples show mushy details in Washington's hair or on the eagle's feathers, making sharp strikes rare and highly desirable. Even coins that appear uncirculated can suffer from lackluster definition, which lowers their grade. As a result, truly high-quality strikes graded MS-66 or MS-67 are much scarcer than the mintage numbers might suggest. This rarity in top condition fuels competition among registry set collectors, who aim to assemble the finest possible set certified by grading services like PCGS and NGC. Market values reflect this difficulty. In good or even extremely fine condition, a 1984 P quarter is worth its face value. In mint state 63, the value might climb to $5 or so, while MS-65 examples can sell for $20 to $40. But once you cross into MS-66, values can leap into the hundreds, and MS-67 examples, the finest known survivors, can bring in $500 to $1,000 at auction. Considering this coin began life as just a quarter, those numbers highlight the power of condition rarity in numismatics. Errors and varieties are another exciting dimension of the 1984 P issue. One of the most famous is the double die reverse, where parts of the lettering or design appear strongly doubled. This dramatic error variety can transform an ordinary coin into a highly collectible rarity worth hundreds or even thousands depending on grade. Off-center strikes are another desirable error type, especially when the date remains fully visible. Striking errors, die cracks, and clipped planchets are also known for this issue, each offering collectors something unique. The thrill of spotting one of these errors in pocket change is what keeps roll hunters and error specialists excited about the 1984 P quarter. Historical context adds another layer of significance. By 1984, the Washington quarter had been in continuous production for more than 50 years. It had already outlasted its original purpose as a temporary commemorative honoring the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth in 1932. Yet here it was, still unchanged, still central to everyday commerce. The coin represents continuity in a decade otherwise defined by rapid change. At the same time, it foreshadows the coming transformation of the quarter, as just 15 years later the state quarters program would reimagine the denomination entirely. The 1984 P quarter also holds nostalgic value for many collectors. For those who grew up in the 1980s, this coin was part of daily life, tossed into arcade machines for a game of Pac-Man, fed into payphones to call home, or used to buy a Coke from a vending machine. Today, those same people often rediscover the 1984 P with a sense of nostalgia, seeing it as more than just pocket change but as a piece of their own personal history. That emotional connection adds to the coin's appeal and keeps it relevant in the collecting world. Why is the 1984 P quarter important to collectors today? First, it's a required piece in any complete Washington quarter set, whether you're collecting by date and mint mark or aiming for a high-grade registry set. Second, its condition rarity makes it an exciting challenge, easy to find in lower grades but extremely difficult to locate in true gem condition. Third, its error varieties, especially the double die reverse, provide endless opportunities for discovery and reward. And finally, it connects us to the everyday life of the 1980s, making it both a historical artifact and a nostalgic treasure. For roll hunters and change searchers, the 1984 P quarter remains a coin worth looking out for. While most will be worn, you never know when you might stumble upon a high-grade survivor or an eye-catching error. That's the magic of numismatics, the possibility that an ordinary coin can turn out to be extraordinary. So the next time you see a 1984 quarter without a mint mark, don't dismiss it as just another piece of spare change. Take a moment to study its details. Look closely at Washington's hair, check the sharpness of the eagle's feathers, and examine the lettering for signs of doubling. What might seem ordinary at first glance could actually be a scarce gem or even a valuable error variety. That's why the 1984 P Washington quarter earns its place among the top 5 most rare George Washington quarter dollar coins. With its combination of condition rarity, error potential, historical context, and nostalgic charm, this coin proves once again that sometimes the most common-looking coins are the ones worth the closest look. 1990 P George Washington quarter dollar coin in good condition. And now we arrive at the final coin, the 1990 P Washington quarter dollar, struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This coin, with its simple P mint mark or no mark depending on strike clarity, may look like any other modern quarter you'd find in your change today. But as you'll see, the 1990 P quarter embodies a unique blend of history, condition rarity, and collector intrigue that has secured its place on this list. Let's start with the context. The year 1990 marked the end of one decade and the beginning of another cultural and economic chapter in the United States. The Cold War was drawing to a close, personal computers were slowly making their way into homes, and the Gulf War loomed on the horizon. Amid these major global shifts, the Washington quarter remained a steady presence in the pockets of millions of Americans. It was a coin that seemed so ordinary at the time that most people didn't think twice about it. Yet, looking back now, the 1990 P quarter is a coin that captures the end of an era. It was one of the last of the classic eagle reverse Washington quarters before the dramatic transformation brought by the state quarters program less than a decade later. The design remained unchanged from the familiar work of John Flanagan. On the obverse, George Washington's left-facing profile is centered prominently, his gaze steady, framed by the bold word, Liberty, across the top. To the left of Washington's throat, the motto, In God We Trust, appears clearly, and the date. 1990 inches centered below his bust. The mint mark, P, for Philadelphia, sits just to the right of Washington's ponytail. This detail is crucial, since by 1990 Philadelphia was routinely adding its P to circulation coins, a practice it had begun for quarters in 1980. Flip the coin, and you see the last vestiges of a long-running tradition, the heraldic eagle reverse. The eagle stands proudly, wings outstretched, gripping a bundle of arrows with an olive branch below. Above the eagle is the timeless motto, E pluribus unum. Around the edges are the inscriptions, United States of America, at the top and $quarter at the bottom. This design had endured since 1932, spanning decades of American history, and by 1990, it was nearing its final years of use. That alone makes the 1990 P historically significant. It represents one of the closing chapters of the classic Washington Quarter before the state quarters revolutionized the series in 1999. The mintage numbers for the 1990 P quarter were huge. Over 613 million pieces were struck in Philadelphia that year. That makes it, on the surface, an incredibly common coin. In circulated condition, it's still found in pocket change every day, and most examples in good or fine grades are worth only face value. But again, as with all coins, the key lies not in sheer numbers but in condition and era varieties. For collectors, the 1990 P quarter is notorious for being difficult to find in the highest mint state grades. Striking quality at the Philadelphia Mint in this era often left something to be desired. Weak strikes, bag marks from mass handling, and poor luster are common problems with this issue. That means that while millions of coins exist, relatively few survive in pristine condition. The challenge of finding a sharp, gem-quality 1990 P quarter is precisely what makes it so appealing to serious collectors. Market values reflect this rarity in top grades. In circulated condition, the coin is worth 25 cents. But in mint state 63, it can bring $5 to $10. In MS65, values rise to around $25 to $40, and in MS66, they can jump to $100 or more. The real prizes are MS67 examples, which are extremely rare and highly sought after for registry sets. These coins can command hundreds, sometimes even crossing the $1,000 mark when they appear at major auctions. That's an incredible leap from the coin's face value and a testament to the power of condition rarity in the numismatic world. But the 1990 P quarter isn't just about condition rarity, it's also home to some intriguing era varieties. Collectors are particularly excited about double die errors, where inscriptions like Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date show clear doubling. These errors can bring premiums well into the hundreds depending on strength and visibility. Off-center strikes are another standout variety, especially when the date and mint mark remain intact. Clipped planchets, die cracks, and strike-throughs, where foreign material interfered with the strike, also appear in this issue, each turning an otherwise ordinary coin into a numismatic prize. The historical significance of the 1990 P quarter cannot be overlooked. It was minted during a transitional time in U.S. coinage. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, the U.S. Mint was already planning major changes for the denomination. The state quarters program, which would begin in 1999, was on the horizon. That program completely transformed the way Americans viewed quarters, making them not just a medium of exchange but also a canvas for celebrating the nation's history and geography. The 1990 P quarter, with its traditional eagle reverse, represents one of the final years before this transformation. For many collectors, this gives the 1990 P a dual identity. On the one hand, it's a common coin, part of a massive mintage and familiar to anyone who used change in the 1990s. On the other, it's a symbolic bridge, the last of the old guard before a bold new era in U.S. coinage began. That duality makes it both accessible and historically meaningful. The 1990 P quarter also carries strong nostalgic value. For those who grew up in the late 1980s and early 1990s, this coin is a memory machine. It brings back images of payphones, laundromats, and the thrill of slipping quarters into arcade machines to play classics like Street Fighter II or pinball. Today, when those same collectors search through their old change jars or bank rolls, the discovery of a 1990 P can spark both personal memories and numismatic excitement. Why does this coin matter to collectors today? First, it's an essential part of any complete Washington Quarter collection, especially for those focusing on circulation strikes from the pre-state quarter era. Second, its condition rarity in high grades makes it a true challenge, pushing values into the hundreds or more for top survivors. Third, its era varieties provide thrilling opportunities for discovery. And finally, it represents the end of an era, the last years of the eagle reverse that had defined the quarter for generations. For roll hunters, the 1990 P remains a worthy target. While most coins found will be worn, the dream of uncovering a gem-quality survivor or a dramatic error keeps the search alive. And for advanced collectors, the pursuit of a certified MS-67 example adds prestige and bragging rights to any registry set. So, the next time you encounter a 1990 P Washington quarter in your pocket change, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. Study its details, inspect its strike, and check for signs of errors. What might appear to be just another common quarter could, in fact, be one of the scarcer high-grade survivors or a valuable error variety waiting to be recognized. That's what makes the 1990 P Washington quarter dollar such an essential piece of our top 5 most rare George Washington quarter dollar coins. It may have started as just another workhorse coin of the American economy, but today, it stands as a reminder of an era gone by, a symbol of transition, and a treasure for those who know where to look. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Washington quarters, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode of the Coins Numismatic series. And tell us in the comments, have you ever found one of these quarters in your collection or your pocket change? We'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep collecting, keep searching, and keep discovering the treasures hiding in plain sight.